Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist. So I was just having a little bit of a conversation. Somebody had commented, Rob Bowe had commented in one of the videos asking how it is that a strong dollar is good for business, or if it's good for business, and how come it is that he sees so many closing businesses and houses in distress, and in relating this to a strong dollar. And I guess, probably one of the easiest ways that I could probably explain this is to kind of talk about what happened to me with the lumber yards that I had worked at. So a long time ago, I had worked at this place called TVBS. It stood for Tualatin Valley Builder Supply. And Tualatin Valley Builder Supply had quite a few locations, and the owner of it during the boom of that particular cycle. Now, I started working there in '95, and the place closed down in 2001, I think it was. And during that time, I saw the expansion. We went through a really good housing boom right then, or at least the store did in our area experienced it. And during that time, the owner of the company expanded his stores, right? So he just kept just opening up new stores and new stores. And I forget how many opened up, but it was quite a few. By the time we had reached the peak, I think that he had probably doubled the amount of stores for the company inside of just a few years. I couldn't be positive of it, but it was pretty close to something like that. And it seemed like it was going to be like the business to be in, right? I mean, I thought, for sure this was going to be my career right here. I had stock in the company and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it was cool. And then, of course, the recession kicked in, and it didn't take very long, and that store went under, right? And not only was it our store that went under, it was a bunch of stores that went under. And I could not figure out what it was that was happening, right? And so I ended up losing my job. I got laid off, and I went off and did construction and quite a bit of other things. And by the time 2007 had rolled around, there was another lumber yard in the area that had grown immensely, right? And the name of that lumber yard is called Builder Supply, right? It was Astoria Gearhart Builder Supply. And those yards were absolutely beautiful. The guy who built those yards up, it was a family-owned business. They were very small lumber yards, but when TVBS went under, he pretty much got all the business, right? And for a couple of years, there was really no other competition. There was, there was another lumber yard on the far end of the county, but there was really nobody else around. And when Home Depot came in, they came into the area, I think it was in 2005 is when the Home Depot came in. And that was like one of the best years that the company had ever done, right? Was the same year that Home Depot had come in. Of course, this was the housing boom, right? Well, what ended up happening is that after the market crashed, right? Well, the expansion of those stores was way too much, okay? The buildings were far too big for what they were. They were lavish for a lumber yard. There was murals on the walls. If you guys want, I'll leave a link down in the description of a video that I posted when I worked there. Just as the place was closing, I videoed a bunch of of us talking, and then I did kind of like a tour of the store. You can go check it out, and I'll leave a link to it. And you can see this lumber yard was by far the nicest lumber yard that you'll probably ever be in. I mean, the bathrooms in this place were nicer than most bathrooms you would ever find at a nice hotel or restaurant, so to speak. I mean, this place was really, really nice. And what ended up happening is that by the time that this recession was in, it didn't matter. He could be selling every single 2x4 in the county, and it still wouldn't be enough to make the minimum payment on these stores, plus all the equipment and everybody who was working there. And even after the bloodletting, where he just pretty much hacked an entire amount of the, just a huge amount of the employees that worked there. When he got done hacking the layoffs, I mean, there was it was just a shell of a company that was left, and you didn't even see him anymore. He just disappeared. And now, to be honest with you, this is actually where I came back into that business, okay? I had left and gone off and did construction, but it was right at that point, after the crash and everything, that one of the guys who was working there was leaving to go join the military, and I was able to get into his sales position. And luckily for me, that actually, I used that position to actually get my position that I have now. So it was really fortunate for me that I was able to actually get in there. But unfortunately, I was only able to be there for a couple of years before it went under, and it shut before the store shut down completely. But the point being is that it didn't matter how many 2x4s he sold. He could have sold everything. He could have had all the sales of all the houses in the county, and it still wouldn't have been enough because he was making the minimum payment at a peak. Okay, when he was selling all these house packages out there and he was making all this profit, he got those stores up to that profit. You see what I'm saying? So that the minimum payment to run the stores was that profit margin, and any little slip up and he wasn't going to be able to make the profit anymore. So even if it continued, like the amount of material that was leaving the yard was the same quantity, it didn't matter because the price of the material had dropped. Okay, it had dropped pretty dramatically during the housing crash. So it didn't, at that point, it didn't matter. It didn't matter even if he sold the same amount of material that he was selling back at the peak. It wasn't going to be enough profit on that material in order to keep the stores open. There was no way. He had put himself in a position. There was no way that the store could function the moment that they had a downturn, right? So long as you kept inflating, you would have been fine, okay? But the moment it churned, it was all over. Anyway, I'm gonna leave some links to that video for you guys, and go check it out. Let me know. Uneducated Economist. Talk to you later.